I'm recording another video. This one has to be quick. But anyways, it is 7:40 p.m. on 12th of March. One thing is this is kind of a procrastination, but after this I'm gonna procrastinate again because, um, yeah, fuck it. Maybe I'll do work later. I don't know. So I finished Mythic Quest, right? And then it turns out, Parks and Recs, I can watch it. Um, the first season is actually kind of mid, but there's something that draws me in, so I don't mind continue watching. I watched like the first half of the entire series before, so I know some parts are enjoyable, and I laughed at some parts. Um, yeah, so um, I'll get on to that. But the thing I want to talk about quickly today is ethics and ecology, which the issue is my perspective is mostly based on my university and I guess the general um, uh, discourse regarding ethics in ecology, which is like how we consider this. Fuck yeah, I got a mosquito. Um, one second. Okay. So ethics in ecology. So it seems that destruction, biodiversity, and wildlife, and all that is like this axiomic, it's ethical bedrock where you can just justify. You don't need to justify that in terms of ethics. Like, things are bad because it would ruin biodiversity. Um, but then I just find that really a lot of, because that's such a seen as an axiom and like fundamental. Um, the whole concept of ethics and ecology seems very, very shallow, considering the fact that I think it's not axiomic. Um, the reason is, and this is one thing I realized during my study in evolutionary biology, is because, um, first of all, throughout evolution, there has been extinction level events, right? Um, but what creates biodiversity seems to be that extinction. Like, Cambrian explosion only happened because there was a big extinction level threat, or there was a big, mass extinction event that helped other life to prosper in the future, prosper later, and for more speciations to happen with new niches being able to, or old niches being able to be filled, or allow for development of newer niches. Um, to be fair, I don't know the exact pattern to why it increases biodiversity than the biodiversity before the extinction, mass extinction. Possibly because there's still that organic foundation in the environment, so it's not like starting from scratch. That's my guess. I don't think I really learned why. But the point is that a death or extinction of a species is not a black and white thing. It means it's going to be filled by another species, potentially increasing biodiversity even. So then when you come back to the question of like, okay, climate change or deforestation is bad because it reduces biodiversity. Well, does it really? Because also life adapts, right? And I think what it seems like we're doing is, urbanization. I guess it destroys uh, the natural environment, but then life is adapting to be synanthropic, right? There are species living in cities now. There's so many seagulls in this area, and then foxes, and a spider just fell on me just before from window. There are mosquitoes flying in my room. So I mean, maybe compared to an actual forest, um, there's less biodiversity in the urban area. Um, but there is that element of life being able to adapt, and this human destruction of biodiversity is simply another form of selection onto these species that possibly may be very intense. Um, to be fair, um, destruction of habitats and land in the name of, for human benefit, those kind of things, I can understand that there seems to be a more permanent damage where it's hard for life to go back to cover that niche. Because it's different, right? It's different from um, after an extinction, there's still an organic foundation for other species to fill that niche. It is different, sort of. Um, but then when we talk about climate change, that's more so the environment changing, right? That's not environment changing for us. We're not changing the environment for suitable habitat for humans or resources. It's just a consequence of our exploitation for the environment to change. But that doesn't mean there's still organic elements. It's just becoming more different. And I understand that biodiversity is going to, uh, reduce quite significantly, possibly, with climate change. But then, couldn't you argue that it just creates a new environment, but with that organic foundation, like higher sea levels or temperature, changing in the northern areas becoming warmer or something. So the area of temperature is changing. So migration changes or the habitat of species changes that could, disrupt the balance of certain a community of species. Uh, but then species eventually adapt, right? And new niches can be made, or old niches can be filled. So I don't really see in the long run, like argument about climate change destroying biodiversity. It doesn't really make much ethical sense, I feel. Now, I bet there's a better expert that might be able to go against this. Then I would love to hear the argument against this. And maybe there is one out there on Google search, but um, I'm kind of lazy. I'd rather someone tell me and make an argument. And then that makes me frustrated, so I Google and then actually do my research. Um, but at the moment, it just seems like the arguments with certain ethics and ecology are very shallow. Um, and it just seems a bit, you know, a bit weird. Um, and yeah, that's fuck. I just had something else in my mind. Um, oh yeah. So then the whole point is that possibly I can see why climate change can be a problem, which I'll get into. But the whole point is that destruction to biodiversity and extinction of species isn't the axiom, which in the common, discourse and what I hear from a university, that's the axiom. But it's not, because you can break it down and realize, okay, there's one species that could be extinct that would actually be bad for us, and that species is humanity. Then I think it ethically makes a lot more sense what we're doing. Um, this whole argument about climate change is our argument for protection of humans. Then okay, oh yeah, because like maybe we can adapt, but a lot of things are gonna be ruined or changed too much, that possibly humans might not be able to survive. Then okay, yeah, sure. But it's just looking at one specific random species and saying it's unethical because that species goes extinct seems a bit less ethically sound or philosophically sound, because that's random. Species go extinct all the time throughout millennia. It's just a natural process. Just because we're inducing it doesn't necessarily make it unethical, considering the fact that it could still happen. Ooh, I understand that could be refuted. Um, because you can just make the argument about that with death and killing. Um, but then the whole idea is you can't look at ecology on an individual level, right? You can't really look at ecology is a large scale thing. You have to realize the dynamic of species interaction in the environment. And when you consider that, you have to also take into account um, just this natural process of extinction, mass extinction, and explosion of new biodiversity. Because at the end of the day, the argument is, and then maybe the axiom is maintaining the current biodiversity. But then that also doesn't make sense, because even without our intervention on nature, nature is still changing constantly. It's dynamic. 1,000 years from now, the same set of communities are not going to exist, more or less. Because, species evolve all the time. Evolution is not about reaching a point of fixed niches where species are going to be fixed in. There's always going to be so many factors that change the tide. Um, Slightly literally speaking. Um, so when you consider that, what's the point of considering the maintenance of current biodiversity? It doesn't make any sense unless the whole point is that we rely on the current biodiversity, and therefore if there's too much change that's going to affect us negatively, then okay. And then possibly a lot of people are arguing based on that, but I've never really, you know, from my perspective, it seems like people do argue that destruction of biodiversity, full stop. That's the extent. We don't go any further than that, because that in of itself is inherently unethical. Um, so yeah, that's why. That's the point I wanted to make. Yeah, and just that argument seemed shallow. Um, that saving life, but then when you look at like poaching and then protecting, endangered species and all that, then again, it's like, hmm, you know, why are we protecting endangered species? I mean, I would argue that I think a more justifiable argument to protecting an endangered species is because they're cute, so we don't want to let them die. That makes sense. Um, but if you're trying to argue that it's inherently good to protect the species that is about to go extinct, I'm not sure if that is rational. And not in a cold hearted way, because, like, if you go into intuitivism, okay, but then a lot of intuitive aspects is just hard to justifiable, just is hard to be justifiable because it's also emotion based. And I get ethics, you gotta involve emotion too, but I think when it comes to this argument, it just doesn't make any sense. It's um, illogical, considering the larger scale concept of ecology and evolution. Yeah, I feel like I could have. Yeah, that's it. I don't want to make this video long, or journal, whatever, long. Yeah, that's it. Um, I know there seem to be more viewers. I think when it comes to stuff like this, maybe I want to see a comment, maybe, yeah. Although I also don't want to see any comments because that's gonna break the illusion of the illusion. But then I kind of want that to break, but also don't want to. I don't know. But if I really start getting too many views, I'm gonna delete this or private this channel because I don't want too many people seeing this. Okay. See you. Bye.